Bam, bam, ba, bam. Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to Age of Sigmar Mondays, where we talk about, well, normally Age of Sigmar. Sometimes not. It depends. I'm joined by Mr. James Powell, everyone. Can I get a round of applause from the Twitch audience, please? James, how are you?
Yeah, very well. Very well. Glad to be back.
Nice to have you back. You've been away, and it's nice to see you. Now, just a quick one for everyone who's joined us live. Thank you for joining us live. I see a bunch of you have subscribed. I want to thank you to Bobbin for donating £20 to the show. Everyone for subscribing. That's super lovely. Nathan is currently away. I said to him, do you want to review the Stormcast book? And he said, I want the night off. So he's saving his energy for the Uruk War Clans next week. Dad just said he didn't want to be here. He said, fuck you all. No, he didn't. He's at work. Dan's at work.
Didn't Dan say he hated the chat and they didn't tag him in enough pictures of Liberators?
Yeah, please tweet him as much as possible. At Dan Unsupervised, please tweet him. Right, so thank you to everyone who joined us live. T-Man Cash, Garbod. So it's our first look at the Stormcast Eternals book. Our first look at the Stormcast Eternals book. We don't get advanced or preview copies like everyone else on the internet. We did get offered it once. We turned it down. So that way you get free, unbiased opinion on what we think is in the book and the quality of said book, etc. So we'll be looking at that today. Our first passover. I've spent the weekend looking it through. James has had a couple of hours with it. To have a little look. So now it's not going to be a deep dive. We will be doing deep dives and we will be doing like in-depth analysis later on, of course. But today's just going to be a first look. So our opinions may change as time goes on. James, before we get into any of the actual content, how you been? What you been doing?
Yeah, been pretty good. Just lost my voice apparently. Yeah, been very good. I don't really know what I've done. Not a huge amount. Lots of work.
Happens.
And I have took a dive, which people might have seen on Twitter, into the wonderful world of Marvel Crisis Protocol.
I've seen a pretty deep dive. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was a deep dive that was painful to my wallet. It was a deep dive where I went, what do I want to play? There's all these Marvel superheroes. I was like, do you know what? Always been an X-Men fan. Gonna buy X-Men. I'll just buy X-Force. It's only like 6 models. I was like, oh, but I could also buy Magneto. So then I brought Magneto. Then I was like, oh, I could also buy all the Brotherhood mutants. So then I brought all of them, and it continues.
And you can paint up like dudes like pretty quick, right? So like it's pretty. I like one of the things I'm genuinely interested in like learning. We might be holding an event here soon with Aaron, and doing some live coverage. But more on that. Yeah, I could see you being excited about that, and also I could think everyone is going to be. So for everyone at home, Nathan, who was ill last week, is fine. He's in good fettle. He will be returning. He's not unwell. He just didn't want to talk about Stormcast. So much so, he refused to come on the show, which is, I think, a pretty gangster move, ultimately. Right, so let's move into the news section super quick. Marchetas, thank you for resubscribing. I see everyone in the chat. OJ, Hallalex, yes, Lex. Stabgrot Plus, love you. I'm a bunny. Thank you for subscribing. Heinrad, what's going on? James, I saw they're doing Gambit. I'm going to be into Gambit.
They are doing Gambit. I've got all the X-Men, and I've been watching the 90s X-Men TV show, which is kind of amazing and kind of the most mind-boggling TV show I've ever rewatched.
Isn't it? Have you ever rewatched? Oh, is it called? It's not called Dinosaurs. Have you ever rewatched Dinosaurs?
No, I never did it. I didn't bother.
I think Dinosaurs is what created me. I think. Like, I didn't understand quite how like anti-capitalist the TV show Dinosaurs was. I didn't know. Do you know it was written by the same guy who wrote Max Headroom?
Is it actually?
Yes. So, also the same writer as Super Mario Brothers. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's a side tangent. Yeah? Right, okay, alright, okay. Right,
Look how much the chat loves 90s X-Men. You can tell what generation we're from.
You can. Right, okay. Before we get into talking about the Stormcast book, because I'd like to dive straight into it, we're going to talk about news. Look at me. I'm going to make a little mental note. 9 minutes in, Scrivo. That's for you. let's talk about the news. And there isn't much news other than the fact that we've had 2 new Battletomes out, which is pretty exciting, James. So those have been on preview, which has been pretty cool. And we've also got some of the Cruel Boys stuff on pre-order this week, which is exciting, I guess, if you like all of those things. I mean, everyone's already got Bolt Boys, so we don't need anything else. We need some Sludge Rakers, and then we're done. So we're all good already. So that's exciting. But I guess probably the biggest news, and this is really important, impacts absolutely everyone, is that the app is out on Wednesday. So the Warhammer Age of Sigmar app in beta is out.
I was going to say, it's not out, is it? It's in testing on Wednesday.
It's in testing on Wednesday. Yeah, but we've obviously already all subscribed to the Plus because of those painting tutorials. So, regardless of that, we get our free app because we've already subscribed.
Yeah, that is
true. That's true. That's true. So the app is out. James, talk to me about your excitement. Twitch chat, I want to hear your thoughts. How do you think about the... as Adam Mumford said on this show once, he said, a beta app is like saying no offense before you call someone ugly. What do you think?
You want... my honest opinion, right? Mm-hmm. So I subscribed to the Plus.
Yeah, you subscribed to the Plus, yeah.
I watched all the content that was on it within 3 hours.
Yeah.
When it came out. I tried to load it again the other day to watch whatever other content had been added. It didn't work. I was that disinterested. I didn't bother, so I haven't been back on. And I think the day I got it, I decided to download and look at the Warhammer 40,000 app, just because it was free now.
Yep.
Don't really play much Warhammer 40,000. So I downloaded the app, asked it to go onto my account, and it said, what did it say? Something 40k, like translocating negative device.
Yeah.
And that was it for 4 attempts, 2 hours, and then crashed. So I uninstalled it.
Oh, okay. Well, if it makes you feel any better, on Wednesday, I expect exactly the same result from the Age of Sigmar app.
So that's my problem. So my problem is that my experience of the 40k app, of which all the chats that I've paid very little attention to but see, is like, oh, we imagine it'll be like the 40k app. And I'm like, cool, because I technically pay for that, and it doesn't work on my phone. I don't know why.
No one knows. Someone in the chat asked, is the 40k app out of beta yet, a year later? And the answer would be, I think no. I'm not sure. But I'm excited because, listen, I'm hopeful. Yeah, we'll ignore the quote that I heard recently in a coffee shop down the road that the app team is leaving in droves, an actual quote, unofficially sourced by me. And we'll, in the interest, I wish Shilly was here. If Shilly was here, it'd be fucking great. I could play both parts. Yeah, I could be like, well, they released a 40k app and it still doesn't work. One of the main problems for us as a community is getting digital information which we know is accurate. For example, you have your Battletome. Okay, is the stuff in there accurate? Currently, at the release of these 2 Battletomes, yes. However, once FAQs and things happen, maybe no. So you kind of have to, do you print it out and stick it in the book? You think, right, no, I'll just keep it all online in an app. But the app wasn't updated sometimes, months at a time. Recently, people have been using the app for Gargans, and I think maybe the Stomp attacks say that they're Ren 2 or Ren 3, and they're Ren... Something's wrong, is the point, and people are using it, and they're like, huh... That's not right. So the thing that I pray for most, more than anything on Wednesday, is digital validity. Like I can be like, I know the app has got the correct rules in. That's my dream. That's my hope for the app. What do you all think? Do you think it's... Let's just hope is what I'm going to say. That's what I'm hoping. That's my hope.
Do you know what I hope?
Yeah.
Do you want my honest opinion?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the app team all left. They've panicked, and so the solution is, on Wednesday, they just move the Warhammer Age of Sigmar app over and pretend it's a new app.
Me too! That would be the best!
They can update it, that would be lovely. I mean, it never got done on time, but if they want to update it, great. But just bring that over.
If they just did the same thing. Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I want.
Goblins has said 14 months later and I still can't build legal tile lists for 40k lol. It's going to be a hot mess. New icon of the splash screen. Call it a day, boys. Lex, we're into that. That's what we want. Yeah, just do the same thing. Honestly, the whole Age of Sigmar community will just be like this. Round of applause. We'll do a whip around. Listen, Age of Sigmar app team. If you just do the same app, but just update everything, the same fucking app, just update everything, that's all, we'll do a whip around and we'll get you all the Wagamamas. That is a fucking guarantee from the Honest Wargamer community. Yeah?
Do you never think though, right? Like, and I'm going off on a tangent and someone will moan.
Yeah.
But like, has anyone ever played like a game like Stardew Valley? Sold millions of copies.
Oh, yeah.
Little cute farming game. It's made by like one person. Does a
Speckles!
better job than making a text-based app.
Right.
By $1 billion company. Like, just hire him. Hire me. I'll just move it across. I'll just click and drag.
Just click and drag. Just rename it.
Yeah.
Age of
bit.
Sigmar.
New Stormcast 3.0. Done. Next.
Okay. All right. For the whip around, I appreciate all of you. Speckles, thanks for resubscribing and being here. So that's the big news. So Wednesday is going to be a very exciting day. Very exciting day. The app is coming out. That's the biggest news because honestly, keeping track of all the data is, well, actually maybe not that much of a problem, James. Because you can remember all of your rules for your new armies on the back of your hand. You just write it down, be like, oh, I guess I've got +1 stat. I'm done. That's all the rules I needed.
I'm only playing Stormcast now. So all I'll do is go, hang on. 3 to hit, 3 to wound, -1, 2 damage.
1 damage, mate. Fucking 2 damage. Get the fuck out.
Annihilators are 2 damage. I'll just use Annihilators, nothing else. They're battle
You're not
right
going to use
right?
Annihilators. You're not going to use anything but dragons. But anyway, all right. Let's get deep dive. So that's the news section. Nailed it in 17 minutes. Listen, without Nathan and James, they've been holding us back. We're so quick.
Speed.
Fucking speed.
Because I've been playing Marvel. Like, a game apparently lasts 1 hour and 45 minutes. Whew. It's like playing with Tom.
Little Brathy says, do they pay, and hello, by the way, do they pay the War Scroll Builder guy, or is he still doing it for free because he's a legend? I'm pretty certain he gets paid. But that doesn't matter. They should pay him more. We all agree Tony P should get paid more, right? All of us.
Actually...
What?
Do you know what? Forget the old app. Just let Tony P do it. Just put War Scroll Builder on, and then put the pictures on. Done.
I'm with you, James. We all agree.
That would be the best app. Let's do that instead. Right, who do I write? Who do I write to?
At Warhammer Weekly. I message Vince. Talk to him. Right, the other bit of news, I guess, which is actually pretty relevant for the Age of Sigmar community, is for the first time in 5-6 years or whatever, we actually don't get War Scrolls for free anymore. So this is pretty relevant. So we used to, at the launch or a pre-order of a new book, like for instance this weekend, or when we saw the pre-orders for new stuff, we would have had a War Scroll alongside them, so we would have known what the unit did. So that like we could have an informed decision. That's no longer available, and so they've said that'll be in the app. The app's got me full of joy, James, like in a way that I can't describe. So it's going to be there, and there's nothing we can do about it. So that's a bit of a shame. We've changed, and actually this is kind of hello Elfrost, by the way. So yeah, no more free War Scrolls via the site, and we'll talk about what I'll quickly mention why I think that's a problem. Is because like Age of Sigmar has been an amazing game for a bunch of years, specifically because I could just be like, oh, I wonder what that unit does. Oh, that's cool. I'll buy that. That's fun, right? The ability to know what stuff does was always a really fun and exciting journey that you could do on the car ride, on the train, while having fish and chips at the beach. Any of those things, waiting for your turn to play Pokemon Snap, whatever the situation. Like, you could be scrolling through, be like, that looks fun, I'm going to buy that. Or, that looks cool, I'll buy that. But now it's behind a paywall, and I don't think that they seem to understand that, like, that's a problem, right? You're going to care less. Like, you try to install the 40k app, didn't work, now you're not going to buy any 40k stuff, right?
Well, I just think, like, it's janky, right? Like... one of the the Warhammer Age of Sigmar app was really good. Like, I'm not even going to deny it, but sometimes it wasn't up to date, and quite often, like, just the PDF on the website was up to date. So there was even that bonus that a couple of times at an event, I've been like, oh, I don't think this has been updated. Just do a sec, and I literally like go on the web store, open a page, open a PDF, all on my phone, and then be like, cool, this is what it does. Like, I've got the War Scroll on my phone. It took about 30 seconds. I don't have to carry it. It's probably quicker than rifling through the pack of cards that you can buy. Like, there it is. But also, then I'm on their website. There's a good chance I buy something. Like, it's sensible business. Like, it always made sense to me. I was always like, oh, I look at something. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I buy it.
Yeah.
And Warhammer's not a game, I don't think. And again, the community can kill me, but I don't think Warhammer is a hobby or a game that suffers from units generally being bad, because people still buy stuff. Like,
I know
people
what you
still
mean.
brought entire Slanesh armies. Like, even though it's not particularly competitive, because either they want to paint it, or they just like the chapter, or they, the Chaos Guard, or they want to play it. So I think, like, just having the War Scroll and me being like, oh, there's a Chariot. Oh, it's probably not as good as I want. Oh, I'll just buy it anyway because I want it. Whereas actually having the rules there, I might go for the rules and then spend £100.
Yeah.
It's
fair. And there's loads of people in the chat saying I've literally bought stuff because I looked at stuff on the app. Either way, I think what's interesting is Age of Sigmar 3 is probably the most fun version of the game ever, and they're making the barrier entry as small as possible, as large as possible. This is the most difficult it's been to get into the game that it's ever been, and I think that's actually genuinely very interesting. I don't. It must be doing really well and is successful. So they obviously held a little handout. They were like, "Hey, but guys, we fucked this game up. Come on, buy some models. Come on." And now they're like, "Oh, fuck you all. You want to play? Like, pay us," sort of thing. So that's fair. Well, it's not fair, but it's the situation. So there we go. It's like when they built a huge wall at Glastonbury, says Owen. I'm not sure where he's going with that. Some Norwegian dude says, as someone who shows 3 or 4 new people AOS a month, I will say it's a lot easier for people to get second ed, although we learn third is more fun in my opinion. Yes, and Stabgrot Plus says, just merge Warhapedia with War Scroll Builder and I'm set for life. And I think I 100% agree with that. Either way, a really good digital platform would be something that we would like as a community. I don't think we're going to get it, which is a bit disappointing. And you know what, James, it actually was really telling when I was doing my show notes, because I was like, okay, they're probably, ignoring Warhapedia, because I'm also worried about Warhapedia getting taken down. I was like, right, my show notes aren't going to be just like the mad ramblings of like a lunatic. They're now going to be like in fucking Excel with tabs. Yeah, like the whole business. I'm going to be really sensible and make sure I keep stuff down, because you just got to be that guy now, and it's super dull. But anyway, I'm hoping for the app. Fingers crossed for the app. Let's all hope and pray. And listen, thank you to someone, I saw them earlier, donate £1 to the show for the App Guy Wagamama Fund. I appreciate you doing that.
We've got 1/8 of a starter. Let's go.
Anyway, so let's talk Stormcast. 21 minutes in. Okay, we did it. It's pretty fast. Now this is quite important. That we're doing Stormcast this week. We're going to do Uruk Warclans next week. We're going to do deep dives on other books another day. The important thing to note is these are the first Age of Sigmar 3 Battletomes. So we really get some sort of idea of what they might be trying to achieve with Age of Sigmar 3 compared to the Battletomes in Age of Sigmar 2. It's fair to say, if you guys haven't ever watched us review one of these before, or talk about any of these before, we kind of had this jokey conversation about the sin guy and the bin guy. Sometimes books were super pushed or way too competitive, and other books were just completely Slanesh, is the word we use to describe it now. And either way, we called the sin guy and the bin guy. One of the two wrote the book. We might not have that anymore. It feels like there's some sort of consistency between the two books that have been released, which is quite cool. But we don't actually know what these books are going to look like going forward, so this is the first time we get to kind of see what it is. We also have to be aware of the meta. Thank you, Kalzath, for subscribing. We have to be aware of the meta that they're being put into. And again, if this is a first interaction with Age of Sigmar 3 at all, or you're fairly new, you have to remember that these books are probably written like a year ago. maybe longer, maybe like a year and a half ago. So there'll be a long lead time. So they can't have known the meta that they were going to put these books into, as in the, you know, things that are pretty dominant. So they won't know that, so they won't be related to it. Sometimes they'll be related to the meta from a year and a half ago, which is always very funny, where they're like, yeah, we've solved that problem. It's like, we've moved on. We've moved the hell on. But again, a digital platform will be good for that, and the print media version of it isn't. So it's kind of, it creates some nice fun stories, which I quite like. Anyway, Stormcast. Haven't had a book update other than the kind of stuff we got in Broken Realms since the beginning of Age of Sigmar 2. Which is really exciting. So we got to kind of see what they decided to do with this kind of stuff. And James, you've had a look through. Do you have any kind of Niminian? Thank you for subscribing. Thanks everyone for subscribing. If it's your first time, super appreciate it. Have you got any thoughts, kind of off the top of your head, like a TLDR at the start? Anything? Twitch chat. I want the same from you if you got it.
Gryph-hounds are still rubbish. That's a negative.
Yep. Good. Agreed.
Why is
Going
every
straight
wizard
to the source?
still only have one cast?
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Things with wings are generally better than things with feet.
Prosecutors? Are you talking about prosecutors? Cause
yeah, they're
that's
great.
Wrong.
Love me a prosecutor.
Fucking right. Like so, Reaper for resubscribing.
Dragon Army 2021.
Yeah. All right.
Or probably 2022 by the time it gets to us.
It's cute that that's the first thing you ran to. All right, we're gonna cover some of these. I've got some talking points which we're gonna cover at the end, and I'm gonna try and not flavor the conversation as we go through it. But I'll just do some quick TLDRs. Compared to books from Age of Sigmar 2, Allegiance abilities sub-factions are much weaker, and they're much simpler. Much simpler is also much weaker at the same time. Simpler does. In fact, I don't think simpler has to equal weaker. For instance, like Petrifex was +1 save. That's pretty strong. Yeah? Like the whole army wide. That was a pretty strong, simple strength. A lot of these are weak and also simpler. Sub-factions have lost command abilities, artifacts. You used to be locked into both. You're now not locked into them at all. They just have one ability for a sub-faction. A nice change, positive change, is being certain sub-factions you unlock other things as battle line, which I think is really great. I really like that. I think that's a nice change. The spell law is really weak and ineffective compared to other spell laws in Age of Sigmar 2. There are no command abilities on War Scrolls at all, and in fact, generic command abilities are enhancements that you get. So you have to pay for it like other enhancement, and it's going to be fighting for Amulet of Destiny. And this is really important: they're only once per battle. Right? So those are some sort of key changes, ultimately. They've also taken a load of different rules off units. So the kind of main talking point is that generally everything is simpler, apart from... That's rubbish.
Drugs.
Right, so we are back, and if you're listening to this on the podcast or on YouTube, there we had a small internet connection break. So we're going to go through those bits again. So if I repeat myself, I am repeating myself. Nathan just came and just unplugged the computer, so that's what happened. So we are back. If we are back, we're just going to let the Twitch chat know that we're back. So talking points as we go through these things are, just to re-clarify, allegiance, basically everything is simpler. Yeah? There are less allegiance abilities. There are less things on the War Scrolls. There are less everything. There's less spell law. There's less command traits. There's less artifacts. There's less everything. So the question that we're going to get to at the end of the show is less stuff better if it's more effective? What do we mean by effective, and what do we think of it in the game? Some of it is quite interesting because as we go through this conversation really quickly, they've taken rules off things like Paladors no longer, their beak attacks no longer do mortal wounds, James. They've done that. Protectors, which is probably the biggest one. Protectors are a paladin unit that have existed since not quite the first wave of Age of Sigmar stuff, but pretty much. They've been around for 5 years. They had an attack which on 6s against monsters became D6 damage. They were great. They weren't very good because they were quite slow to move, and if you ever got them into, like, it was hard to get them into combat, and monsters weren't necessarily a big deal, but they were cool. They were fun.
I think I've got 15.
You've got 15, yeah?
Yeah.
Right, so...
Put them in a shelf.
But what they did is they reduced all of the rules off a bunch of different units, except in the Celestant Primary, they gave a 4-up ward. And then what they did was... So you go, okay, it's simpler. Like Little Marathi says, maybe because Stormcast Eternals are marked for beginners, so they simplified it. So there's that kind of conversation. So it's simple because it's for simple people. That's the conversation. However, then that's not true, because all the new stuff has got all of the rules. So...
Yeah. Well, I've played 2 events with the new stuff. And, like, you don't actually need the book rules. You just ignore them because there's so much on each war scroll, they play themselves.
No, there's so much on the new war scrolls.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So the new units. So I've only played all new units in every event apart from a knight... Oh, what's his name? Not the Incantor, the wizard. Arcanum. Lord Arcanum. That's it. And all new toys.
Yeah. Yeah, so effectively, the conversation we're going to go through at the end, in my opinion, is going to be that the new stuff is the good stuff, and by the way, it's the same in the Uruk book. I'd like to be super clear. They effectively retconned out, like they haven't said don't buy Bone Splitters, but they also kind of have. They're like, nah, nothing for you, and then they've given all the new rules to the new guys, basically. So that's kind of the conversation as we go through it. And we'll talk about that at the end, about how we feel about it, if that's cool with everyone. Is that cool, James?
Yeah.
All right, so
works for me.
So Stormcast, allegiance abilities. Let's talk about this. The allegiance abilities, they've got 3 allegiance. Well, they've got 1 allegiance ability, and then you choose 2 styles of allegiance. And we're going to focus on the Scions of the Storm. I hope I'm saying that right. So their allegiance abilities are Blaze of Glory, which activates with the Thunderstrike keyword, by the way. When a model dies, so any Stormcast model, when a Stormcast model dies, you roll a number of dice equal to the wounds characteristic. So let's say 3 wounds. Any 6s equals a mortal wound. If they've got the Thunderstrike keyword, a 5-up equals a mortal wound. Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah?
I think is it +1 dice, or is it +1 to the dice roll?
+1 to the dice roll, right?
At the minute, I think on the little thing, it's +1 dice.
Oh, it's +1 dice. Okay, yeah, that's the one.
So it's their wound characteristic +1 for each model that dies.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, +1 dice. Yeah. Sorry. So you're +1. That's a bad start to the show, eh? Let's just turn it off.
It's okay. I can do these rules. I've used them loads.
Yeah, it's +1 to the dice roll. Sorry, +1 dice to the amount that you get to roll, right? So that's the Thunderstrike. Sorry, I've only had a day to do this, so it's been pretty quick. So there might be some copy and paste errors. So yeah, a dice plus. Thank you very much, Owen. And that's it. That's it. That's your allegiance ability. Go home. You're done.
However,
yeah,
I did do 9 mortal wounds to Arcan with that the other day.
Yes, that's true.
This is going to annoy
me. And then you've got Scions of the Storm, which is you can place 1 unit in reserve for every unit deployed on the field, right? And then in the core rules, it tells you when that has to come by. So you have to come in by turn 4. Okay?
Yep.
So those are your allegiance abilities, and they're pretty uninteresting. And so because of that, we've talked about this a lot on the show. We've talked about this on shows before. If your allegiance abilities aren't very interesting, then you go to the War Scrolls and you go find the cool things that are interesting in the War Scrolls. Now, the War Scrolls aren't interesting either. Like, they have 50 units, right? So James, what's the difference between
76?
Yeah, 76. 74, whatever. What's the difference between a Vindicator and a Liberator? 74, whatever. What's the difference between a Vindicator and a Liberator? 76. 74, whatever. What's the difference between a Vindicator and a Liberator? 74, whatever. What's the difference between a Vindicator and a Liberator? 74, whatever. What's the difference between a Vindicator and a Liberator? 74, whatever. What's the difference between a Vindicator and a Liberator? 74, whatever. What's the difference between a Vindicator and a Liberator? 74, whatever. What's the difference between a Vindicator and a Liberator? 74, whatever. What's the difference between a Vindicator and a Liberator? 74, whatever. What's the difference between a Vindicator and a Liberator? 74, whatever. What's the difference between a Vindicator and a Liberator? 74, whatever. What's the difference between a Vindicator and a Libera
What's the difference between a Vindicator and a Liberator? Yeah. Vindicators are better.
Why?
2-inch range instead of 1-inch range. 1 extra save, so 3 up save instead of 4 up save. They do mortal wounds on 6s. Their bravery's higher because they have a banner. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head.
And 15 points. 15 points more. Yeah.
Yeah, so tons of points better.
Yeah, and as everyone has said, and new, and £5 more expensive. So yes, Vindicators are just better. But what's the difference between a Vindicator, a Liberator, and a Vanguard Hunter?
Vanguard Hunters have always been bad. Like I think I've got 10, and I think they got used 3 times.
Yeah. My point is that if you make the allegiance abilities simple and the sub-factions simple, then what you do is you run to the flavour of the War Scroll, right? Some people advocate for that. Some people are like, it's really exciting that allegiance abilities maybe won't be as strong, because then it's all about the flavour on the War Scroll. But when your War Scroll is really bland and boring, when it's it's not Marmite, it's dry white toast, James. I don't know what the most bland meal you've ever had is, but it's this book and all of the units inside of it. Like, did you ever see a Palador? Like, ever?
No.
And they lost mortal wounds on 6s on the beaks for no reason. Like why? Like, who did they hurt? Who hurt the Paladors? Who hurt Protectors? Yeah? I kind of understand the Protectors because they're like, because again, they're anti-monsters. They're like, I want to make monsters viable, so I won't give a dedicated anti-monster unit in the game. Even though that would be a nice balance thing, and you could kind of like, oh, that's fun. That's kind of interesting. But that's not right. Anyway. I want hobnob armies every time. That's biscuits is a great description. These are oh no, they're not nice. Are they called nice biscuits? Those terrible.
Yeah, nice biscuits.
This is an English
They're like
thing.
Just sugared biscuit.
No, the dry digestives is what the Stormcast book is. Yeah.
What are they? Milk? Something milk? I know the one you mean with the cow eye.
Rich tea.
There you go.
Thank you, chat. Right, anyway, so you go to it, and so before we get into any other elements of this particular book, because the book doesn't have strong allegiance abilities, you immediately think, right, I'm going to go to the War Scrolls, and they're all unflavorful other than the absolute Chad dragons, which we'll talk about in a moment, right? So let's look at the Storm Hosts, right? Hammers of Sigmar. So these are the different sub-factions. And again, super simple compared to what they were. This is 6+ ward while wholly within 12 inches of an objective. Now, their battle line, if you do go Hammers of Sigmar, you can have Concussors, Desolators, Fulminators, and Tempesters, yeah, all as battle line, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah?
It's about time. It's only taken 5 years.
Yeah, right. And 6+ ward while wholly within 12 inches of an objective is a nothing. It's a nothing burger. Like, it's fine if you want to run maybe so what you would do with that is you would look at that and you would think, right, I want as many wounds as I can get having a 6-up ward. That's what I want. As many wounds that can apply to. And you can't really do that in this book because it's more of an elite infantry or elite dragon book. It's a dragon book. It's a book of dragons. I don't know if I've mentioned the absolute Waitrose fancy only at Christmas set of biscuits that you get from your nan's house that you've never seen. And it's like, it's got that bit of paper between like the top layer and the bottom layer of biscuit. And you're like, holy hell. This is do you know what I mean? They've got what are those ones that are like round, but they've got like a little bit of chocolate inside, but it's still a biscuit.
I know the ones you mean.
You know the ones I mean?
They're good. They're good biscuits.
They're fucking good. And also there's other ones that have a sugar you've never seen other than that type of biscuit box. Those are the dragons. Yeah? Can we stop talking about Stormcast and have a tier list show for biscuits instead? We can later. That's going to be good. So what do you think of Hammers of Sigmar, We Cannot Fail, 6-up ward, no objective, James and chat?
Fine. I mean, if we're going the way where things are more basic, that's like a nice, easy one, isn't it?
It is. It's nice. It's nice. I like saltines. What the hell is a saltine?
Wholly within 12 of an objective's weird though.
It's not, because so one of the things that we didn't talk about a moment ago is if you decide. So we skip back a little bit. So there are two ways to run a Stormcast army. You can run it either as a Signs of the Storm, so a pure Stormcast army, or you can run it as a Stormkeep, and you still get these allegiance abilities, right? If you run it as a Stormkeep, you're able to take coalition units from cities of Sigmar, which is quite cool, yeah. And Redeemer units count as 3 models in your objective for turns 1 and 2, or they count as 3 models on all objectives for turns 3, 4, 5, right? So that's what you can do. You can either do that, and we're going to do a whole show later on about running a Stormkeep version of Stormcast, yeah, because there's probably loads to talk about. It'll probably still include fucking dragons, but the Redeemer units. Oh, I made a list of Redeemer units. James, let me talk to you about it. Vindicators, pretty good.
Good.
Vanquishers, no. Liberators, not good Vindicators. Sequitors, whatever. Yeah, I think maybe, I don't know if Judicators are or something either, but like, who gives...
Judicators are not Redeemer units.
Yeah.
It's just those 3.
Yeah.
They're the only Redeemers.
So it sucks, right, is what I'm trying to say. Like, it's fine, because you can run a cities army, which is awesome, love that, but is it, like, dynamic, and will it do a bunch of stuff? Like, so you're basically going to go Horde Redeemers, if you're going for the Cities of Sigmar version, so a Stormkeep, or... Like, otherwise, why would you do it? Why would you go Redeemer?
Yeah.
Why would you go for Stormkeep if you weren't trying to use the ability? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, because your other problem isn't it? Like, the rule would have been better if any unit with a battle line tag got that, because then you could have run some, like, little handgunners, kept them on objective, had 10 of them, had them worth 30 on objective, outscoring a giant. That would have been funny.
Okay, right, listen. I need to control the Twitch chat because they're all being fucking dicks. Right, listen, you bunch of fucks. I'm trying really hard. I've been working on this for a day and a half, and I want it to be good. And apparently I'm not saying Vindictor right. It is said as Vindicator. Okay, it's a Vindicator. All right? Vindessels. James, how do you say it? How do you say
it? It's Vindictor, isn't it?
Is it? Is it Vindicator? What are you saying, chat?
No, Vindicators are 40k, aren't
Vin
they?
Diesels. They're now called Vin Diesels for the rest of time.
We were calling them that anyway.
Vin Diesels. Vindicator. Listen, if you've got problems with that, you need to walk outside. That's what I'm saying.
They are Vindictors.
Vindictors. Are you sure?
Yeah, that's what the Warhammer spelling, Games Workshop spelling says, so it must be right.
Okay, Vindictors. I've lost where I am. We're somewhere. Yeah.
We talked about Redeemer units. We talked about if you're going to run the Stormkeep army, you're going to just spam them, which kind of destroys the point of being able to take cities as Sigmar units. And now we're talking about Storm Hosts. We've done...
Nailed it, James. Fucking
Hammers
great
of Sigmar.
work. Yeah, okay. So we've done Hammers of Sigmar. Then we'll go to the other ones, right? So we've got Hallowed Knights, Only the Faithful, the worst faction, because people shout that out loud. The worst. Redeemer units on a 4...
It's already happened in the chat.
The worst! I fucking hate you! Is Redeemer units on a 4+ fight on death if they're within 3 inches of an enemy.
Oh.
Yeah?
So bad.
Right? So that's not bad, actually. Actually, that's pretty good.
It's not good. No, because it's only good. So this is only good if I go. So I have to go Stormkeep.
Yep.
I have to spam Vindictors, and then they fight when they die, and then they explode.
And you can heal them back. Don't forget healing them back.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but it's literally like one build.
Yeah. It's one build because it's just telling you. So then you say to yourself, okay, I won't do that one build. I'll go to the War Scrolls because the allegiance abilities and so the conversation that's going to occur online over the next fucking year, people are going to say having simple allegiance abilities and simple sub-factions makes the game easier and it's nicer and it's not as bloated and it's fine. But what I'm telling you is they could do simple while also make something interesting, and this isn't that. This makes it monosyllabic. But whatever. R.I.P. Wrathmonger War Scroll. Actually fun. Right, so then Celestial... oh, fuck. I'm not saying it. The next one, Celestial guys. They've got
They are the celestial
I'm not
vindicators.
reading it out loud. I refuse.
Okay.
Yeah. Is driven by vengeance. One charging unit gains exploding 6s in melee.
That's the worst one so far.
I mean, if you make a big fucking unit,
I guess if I've got a unit of something that's
6
really
dragons.
strong,
6 fucking dragons. James, 6 dragons.
then maybe it's okay. But other than that, I'm not sure why I want that.
6 dragons.
Okay, good.
Right.
It's what I want. I like.
Yeah. Anvils of the Hallowed Hammer. So that's a good one because you can tank up a fucking huge unit of like absolute beat sticks. Get yourself 3 Annihilators with the Stormhammers or whatever. 9, sorry, because they can be battle. Oh, they can't be battle line. Can they be battle line in this? No, they can't. They can be battle line in a different army. But yeah, 6 dragons. So then Anvils of the Hallowed Hammer. Deathly Aura. At the end of the charge phase, roll 2d6 against the enemy bravery within 1 inch. If you beat it, you negate the first 2 wounds that unit does. See, that isn't simple. And it's also shit.
And also, the entire game has bravery 10 apart from Stormcast now. So if I'm rolling against anyone else's bravery, they're braver than me anyway, so let's not bother.
Terrible. Like, it's fine. Like, negating 2 wounds is quite nice. Like, negating the first wound on Manfred's pretty cool. I used to play an army that would negate the first wound in every phase. This is, you have to roll to see. So anyway, we'll move on. Where are we up to? Make sure I haven't missed any. So those are those. So the other sub-factions, Knight Excelsior, Storm Annihilation. Start of the combat phase, 1 Paladin unit gets +1 to hit and wound if the enemy unit within 1 inch outnumbers them. The battle line units that they can have, which is cool, is Annihilators with meteoric hammers, Decimators, Protectors, and Retributors. Only Protectors don't fight monsters. Annihilators are pretty cool, James.
Yep,
and
they're relaxed.
They're good. They're 200 points for 9 wounds on a 2-up save.
They've gone up.
But 2 dragons is 285 points. Now, Annihilators are rad. I'm not saying they're not rad, but 2 dragons. So it's 9. It's 9 wounds. I sound like fucking Simon Speckles. I hate it. Right. So like.
He's having a great
It's such a fun book. Right. So 3 Annihilators is 9 wounds on a 2-up save, right? Yeah. Now 2 Drake Guard or whatever the fuck they call battle line Drakes. Are 18 wounds on a 3-up save with a spell ignore on of a 4-up, yeah, and they move 12 inches and they do like 2d6. Well, they do like 2d3 mortal wounds in the shooting phase, and they fight pretty well. And it's 85 points more for an additional 9 wounds. I haven't even talked about rally yet. Like there's a lot, yeah, but they're still fine. They're fine. Like, you could have them. And it's cool. The big problem with the Decimators, Protectors, and Retributors, and I've read all the War Scrolls, is that I've talked about this before, but they took away what Protectors do. Like, they used to fight monsters, which is a bit of a shame, but they kept what Decimators did. So you get +2 attacks if you're outnumbered by the enemy unit, and you fight hordes, which you don't generally tend to fight hordes in Age of Sigmar 3, because they've designed the game to fight monsters, if that makes sense. Yep. So they've designed to fight. They've designed the game with monsters in mind.
Also, Can we just talk about why are Decimators, Protectors, and Retributors now more points than Annihilators?
So you buy the new things. Like,
and I know you get 5, but they've got a worse save by 2.
Yeah, by 2. You do get more. You do get more wounds though. You get 15 wounds versus 9.
Yeah, but I had 1 Annihilator tank a Great Unclean one for 3 rounds of combat, and then I brought 2 back.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Like, the whole thing is buy new stuff only. Yeah, like, that's it. Also, don't forget their Stormstrike armor. So Decimators, Protectors, and Retributors aren't Stormstrike, and Annihilators are. So they're gonna get the +1 save. Oh, they got 3-ups. No, aren't the Annihilators with Meteoric Grandhammers a 3-up save, but the Annihilators with the Shields are a 2-up save.
The Annihilators are a 2-up.
Yeah, and Annihilators with the Grand Hammers are a 3-up save. The Chariots are good, FYI, if you guys are interested. Basically, if you don't want to listen to the rest of the show, just buy loads of dragons and you're good. Maybe not the named ones, and then you can go home. Oh, cool, thanks, Rob, appreciate that. Also, the Celestin Prime slap's pretty good. Not bad. So, Owen, we'll talk about the drive at the end. I really like the fact that you do get different battle line options with different storm hosts. I think that's a huge, big positive change, and I'd like to see that more, right?
Yeah, it'd be cool as well, I think, to see someone who, I don't know, let's say goes Knights Excelsior and only builds Paladin units.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Right, okay, so last storm hosts, we've got Tempest Lords. Flying units can reroll 1 dice for the charge. Not as good as Exploding Sixes, but that's still pretty good for consistent charges. Battle line is Prosecutors with Celestial Hammers and Prosecutors with Stormcloud Javelins. No one's going to ever build that army, so it doesn't matter. Celestial Warbringers have Fearless Foresight, which is once per phase you reroll 1 hit or 1 wound roll for a friendly Celestial Warbringers unit. So that's 1. It might be for every Warbringer unit. I don't know. The wording was I was like, is it both? Is it all or is it 1? If it's all, it's a bit like Salamanders in 40k, which is actually pretty techy. So you can do some fun stuff with elite single units, but I think it's just 1 unit, which is whatever, truth be told. But again, I don't think that's particularly good. But none of them are good, so that's fine. And then Astral Templars have got Beast Stalkers, which is ignore monstrous rampages. And then their battle line is Vanguard Hunters and Vanguard Paladors, both of which got super worse with the update, so that's fine. Templars are good until next GHB. I've been waiting for a Dragon Army for a long time, so I'm here for all of this. This is good. I'm happy about this in the chat. So I'm glad about all that. Right, so next up, let's stop here, take a moment, get ourselves a cup of tea with which to eat our biscuits, James. Yeah? How do you feel? How do you feel so far? Twitch chat. How do you feel so far? Talk to me all. How do you all feel so far, having gone through the allegiance abilities and the sub-faction stuff? What are you thinking, James?
I was kind of just expecting the chat to go crazy. They're okay. I think it's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. I've said loads of times, at the minute, my Age of Sigmar, intensity is low.
Mm-hmm.
My interest is low. Because I think having waited, what have we waited? 4 months since Dominion came out for these rule books? Has been so long to be oh, where's the game at? And I think it's really interesting because if we see this across the board, and I know the loads of the Orc books leaked, or all of the Orc book leaked over the internet. I haven't read any of it. I couldn't be bothered. I won't lie. But if both books follow this tangent where we're seeing War Scrolls dumbed down, and
no. See, because that's going to be the prevailing argument. People are going to say that they're making the book simpler. Then that's categorically not true. They're making all of the old stuff simpler.
Okay. Yeah. So, but if we see, because from here, is what we're seeing is the sub factions and the command abilities being made easier. Is that the right thing? Sub factions and the battle traits. That's the words I'm after. Then fine. But your issue is going to be then, isn't it, that if that happens for some armies and not others, we're going to end up with a really disjointed game for a while, I think, until we see all the books.
Well, what's fascinating is you might end up with we'll talk about that more in the future. I think someone made a good point in the chat. Charles the Dead Lizard. I feel like the pool, it's better now having sub-factions that don't have a command trait and an artifact locked, and I think I super agree, because obviously no one wants to be artifact locked because everyone wants Amulet of Destiny. I agree with you. I don't want my swamp bogglers to ever need anything other than the Amulet of Destiny. That's all I need, and we're good.
Oh, Ethereal Amulet, how I missed you.
Anyway, so that's where we're at. Right, next up, this is an interesting kind of thing, which is new for Age of Sigmar 3 as a review. We've got grand strategies and we've got battle tactics, and both of those are inside of the book. And they aren't as good as the core ones, right? Basically, and what I mean by that is they're not
Don't get me on my box.
no, they're not as easy to achieve, right? And that's actually a huge positive. I said this on the stat show earlier, but I'm going to kind of just go through it again really quickly. I'll read them out and I'll talk about them. Dracothian Defiance, complete only the only people that can complete it are Draconith, Stardrake, or Dracoth heroes are left alive. So the only heroes that are left alive are, so not your enemies, no heroes left for your enemy, and you have to have a Draconith, Stardrake, or Dracoth hero alive to complete that. That is not as easy as Beastmasters, yeah, or Hold the Line, or Grand Sorcery, so you won't do it. Pillars of Victory, complete if only friendly battle line units are left alive at the end that are Redeemer. Now, if you're going to build that big Redeemer brick in the Stormkeep one, then yeah, you might take that. But if you're doing battle line, yeah, just do Hold the Line. Right? This is easy. Yeah. Right. So then Sacred Charge, complete if there are 2+ cities of Sigmar units left on the battlefield, which is super challenging to do if you're running a Stormkeep. So all of these are much easier to do in from the generic ones, so you're going to choose those all the time. And it's the same really for battle tactics. Battle tactics are Hammer Strike Assault, kill a hero with 10 or more wounds that has none assigned to it. Like at the start of that turn, beginning at the start of your turn, you were like, cool, I'm going to kill that hero. It's got no wounds assigned to it. I'm going to kill it. It's got 10 or more wounds. I'm going to destroy that this turn. Cool.
6 dragons.
We're like speckles.
My bloodthirster.
So no challenge too great. Spring Thieves made a good point, which I'm going to get to at the end. This opens up for making players change their grand strategies between rounds, which I think is actually an interesting take. What I'm going to say is that when all of these books are out, I could 100% see Games Workshop or a TO saying, cool, no core battle tactics or grand strategies allowed. And then the game becomes super fucky, right? The game becomes super fucky because this is much harder to achieve. But right now, it would be cool. That would be super cool. It would be really cool, but it would also limit how you build your armies, because the first one doesn't require anything. The next one, Redeemer unit kills a hero in melee, requires you to have a Redeemer unit. Draconith Destruction is kill a unit with 10 or more models with a Draconith, Stardrake, or Dracoth, so you need one of those in your army. A Matter of Honor, kill an enemy starting monster with a Draconith or Stardrake unit, so you would need those in your army. Pioneers of the Realm, capture all objectives in your opponent's territory with Cities of Sigmar unit, which is honestly insane. Like, who do they think they are? Like...
The best lads? Charge! Some great swords. Just getting shot off the board by Lumineth as they run.
Pioneers of the Realm, I've done that one. And then Lightning Shattered Morale is make one model run from a unit that starts out at Bravery 10. Yeah?
I'd like to say, I read these earlier.
Yeah.
I'd rather do Pioneers of the Realm than Lightning Shattered Morale.
I agree.
Like, I read them, and I was like, this Pioneers of the Realm is a nice idea, terrible. And then I got to the bottom one, I was like, oh my god, it seems good now.
Yeah. Right, so one of the interesting things is that, like, and there's no point really going over it too much, like, oh, how will you achieve them? You're just not you're going to do the basic ones. You're going to have a monster stand an objective, you're going to run 3 dudes, you're going to kill a battle line unit, you'll be like, whew, I played most of this game now, I've smashed it. It does open up a very interesting future where the game is based around how you do your own battle tactics, and it's quite nice because, like, a huge compliment to Games Workshop, because what they aren't, this is really important, is more overpowered or easy to achieve like you get in 40k, where in 40k those battle tactics, your secondaries, which is what battle tactics are, like, you generally score more points for your secondaries from your book than you do from the core ones. So that's a really, like, positive thing. That's not the case. And it does also mean later on you can open it up so that you only do grand strategies and battle tactics from your book, which I think would be a really interesting, like, tournament setting to have that. But it's the opposite of what people are going to say about the new books. People are going to say, they're going to say, oh, it's so much better, it's more simple, because I can just design whatever I want. And that's not true. because if these are the only things you need, you're going to take dragons, because 3 of those require you to have a dragon, and then 1 of them requires you to have a Redeemer unit in your army. Yeah? So if it's just those, you're going to build a different sort of army based. Does that make sense? So, like, and you're more pigeonholed into book than you are in anything else. So anyway, but at least they're not like the 40k ones, which is a positive, but they're whatever, so no one cares. So there's that. So those are the battle tactics. Right, let's talk about the other bits. If you want, James, do you want to talk about the spell lore? Unfortunately, I didn't get time to make something that looks super fancy, so you guys are going to have to deal with this. You got Lightning Blast, which is cast on a 5. Closest visible enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. Azurite Halo, so that one and Chain Lightning, I don't really want to talk about. The good one to talk about is Celestial Blades. It's cast on a 5. Pick a friendly unit wholly within 12 inches of a knight, which is a keyword, or 18 inches of a lord or draconith, and you get +1 to wound until your next hero phase, which is pretty cool. Yeah, that's a good one. So Celestial Blades cast on a 5 would be great on a unit that wounds on the 3s that have exploding 6s, because of the sub-faction like 6 dragons. So that's good, right? And that's pick a friendly unit. Thunder, and then there's 2 other ones. You got Azurite Halo, which is basically it's cast on a 5. Any 6s to hit the unit that you cast it on. Any 6s to save. From the unit that gets attacked in melee, reflects a mortal wound back. Yeah, which is quite cool. Then you got.
It's alright. I think that's always been around, hasn't it? Azurite Halo.
Yeah. And then Thundershock, roll dice for each enemy unit within 12 inches of a knight or lord on Draconith. On a 3-up, -1 to wound until your next hero phase. Now that's actually pretty interesting, Thundershock. I quite like that, although you more than likely are just going to be taking the command trait that makes everyone -1 to wound your army anyway. But that one's quite a nice one, especially in a Redeemer army, which is, you're not going to have that. So I quite like Thundershock. I think that's quite fun. And it's quite a big bubble aura, especially if you're going for like healing redeeming units, or you go for save stacking redeeming units, and then you want that -1 to wound bubble. That's pretty good. And then you've got Starfall, which is pick a point within 12 inches of a knight or 18 inches of a lord.
What?
What's up?
This is the worst day. Carry on.
Why? What's happened?
Starfall was better before.
This one's pretty good, though. Pick a point within 12 inches of a knight or 18 inches of a lord or draconith. Each enemy unit within 3 inches on a 3+ cannot make piling moves. Yeah? And they are low casting values. The important point to note is that lords or draconiths cast the spells better, or they cast them at a longer range.
Right.
Yeah? So you're going to want a draconith or a lord.
Yeah. Well, you're going to always take one, I think, right?
Yeah. Yes. But what I'm saying is they're forcing you into that, right? You don't get any any choices. So like they're like, okay, if you want a better wizard, you go for these keywords.
It's like the Salamander War Scroll.
Yeah, exactly.
Push you down that line.
Push you down that line. But the writing pushes you down this line. Anyway, let's talk about command traits. There are only 4 command traits, and they're all kind of okay, but we're just going to talk about one, which is Master of Celestial Menagerie. If this general is a monster and on the battlefield, then -1 to wound Stormcast Eternal monsters.
Nice.
That's nice. So that's an army-wide -1 to wound to all of your monsters, basically, as a command trait. So that one's pretty, it's just self-explanatory. The other ones aren't even good, basically. So
that review. The other ones, don't
artifacts. I don't like any of the weapon versions. Armor ones, all 3 are okay. Drake Scale armor lets you reroll saves against damage to weapons. Mirror Shield is pretty brilliant, which is you can't be shot unless you're within 9 inches. So like you're basically immune to shooting outside of 9 inches, which is really great when you've got a 12-inch shooting attack yourself, which is quite nice.
I'll shoot you. You can't shoot me.
Important question. Are dragons monsters? Yes. So you can have dragon battle line that are -1 to be wounded from the command trait.
So Mirror Shield's flat, isn't it? Can't be shot. So like it's not can't be seen. it's your Lumineth Realm Lords that don't need line of sight still can't shoot that character unless they're within 9.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
And then Amulet of Silver Sigmarite, you cannot reroll hits against the bearer, which is genuinely. Let me just quickly give that a red, because I hate that, because they took rerolls out of the game and they were like, you can't reroll now. And it's like taking it out.
Well, it's also really weird because that Drake scale armor, like reroll saves against damage 2+ weapons. It's like you've just taken all the rerolls out of the game. Don't put one back in.
Yeah, I mean it's one. Like it's one. Anyway, you're right though. Next up, you've got magic items. You've got Quicksilver Draft, which is not bad. Once per battle, always strikes first, and it counts as its activation. But if you do have something that makes you fight again, you can still fight again. Luckstone, it was weird that they clarified it, but maybe it needs clarifying for wording. Luckstone, once per battle, you can choose the result of a hit, wound, save, run, or charge roll, which is genuinely pretty cool if you build yourself up like a slappy lord, let's say, and you want to like guarantee a 12-inch charge, because you get to choose a 12-inch charge, which I think is not bad. And then you got, what's up, James?
I just like the Slappy Lord.
Slappy Lord, yeah.
That's his name. That's his Stormcast name. Greetings, mortal. I have renamed you.
The Slappy
Lord.
Lord. Yeah, and then you got the Obsidian Amulet. Once per battle, start the hero phase, ignore spells and endless spells until your next hero phase, which is better than the 4+ ignore that you already have on your dragons, but why pay for something when you can have a 5-up ward instead? So then you got prayers for your priests, and there are 3, and one of them is amazing, which is Bless Weapons. 3+, a friendly Stormcast unit wholly within 12 inches of a knight or 18 inches of a lord gets exploding 6s. Yeah, which is good. That's a good one. Do you not like that one?
No, that's good. It's just funny.
It's good. It's good if you're not already taking exploding weapons, or you want it in 2 places, or something like that. Then you've got Divine Light, which you've also got relocation. You've got a deep strike in translocation, which isn't bad, but it's on a 3+. So like that's whatever.
It's always been on a 3+ though.
Yeah. You can move after the teleport. Can you move after the teleport? James, talk to the chat while I quickly go and explore if that's true.
What, you can move after translocation?
Let me go read it, and then you just do.
It says it's a deep strike though.
Yeah, that's what I've written. Doesn't mean that that's true. So you keep the chat entertained.
Why can we move after it?
While I go find out if that's true. 1 second. Because
everyone's basically saying it's badly written, and will change in the FAQ. But maybe that's the point. Got to do it on a 3+.
Yeah. So translocation is prayer that answer value of 3. If answered, pick one friendly Stormcast unit wholly within range and visible to the chanter. You can remove that unit from battlefield and set up again anywhere on the battlefield. More than 9 inches with enemy units. Translocation's prayer that has an answer value of 3 and a range of 9. Oh no, they'll FAQ that. That's fine. They'll FAQ that. Good spot chat, but they're gonna change that, so that's fine.
Also, the Lord Relictor apparently gets +1 to chanting, so he does it on a 2+.
Still not. Seraphon just do it, James. They do it.
But soon they'll all be dead because Stormcast stole their dragons.
Okay, all right. Translocation, but I wouldn't be building a list based on that, right? And then Divine Light is 3+, an enemy unit within 12 inches of a knight or 18 inches of a lord. You reroll 1s to hit that target. That's actually pretty good. Yeah, so you pick an enemy unit, and on a 3-up, you get to reroll 1s to hit, and that's pretty rare in this book and generally anyway. So that's awesome. As a prayer, if you get the opportunity, but you have to be within 18 inches on a 3+. You can't guarantee it. It's not quite the same as what's it called? Not Searing Light. The Lumineth one, where you can re-roll your hits. Lambent Light. Nailed it. That's what it is. It's not as good as Lambent Light. But it's as good as Lambent Light, I guess. But anyway, so those are prayers. Any of those jump out to you, James? Bless Weapons, Exploding 6s?
I mean, Translocation probably, but mostly because I've always taken Translocation for however many years it's been. But Bless Weapons is probably the scarier one when you now have models that move 12 inches.
Yeah. Well, they actually move 24. More on that later.
Okay.
Right, then you got some mount
Always good to know.
traits. I'm only going to read out 2. You got Celestial Instincts, which is retreat, shoot, and charge as a mount trait. Like
Nice.
that. And then you've got Thunderous Presence, which is a Draconith only. Instead of Monstrous Rampage on a 3+, an enemy unit within 1 inch cannot receive commands in the following Battleshock phase. So there is a way to make it so that people can't get Inspiring Presence. But it does require you doing that on a mount trait, which is pretty big. And I'd probably be going for Celestial Instincts instead for retreat, shoot, and charge, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Which is nuts.
Yeah, I think that's great as a mount trait because you're getting that for free. So your general could be, whatever artifact you want to take. Like, for instance, you're going to take Master of Celestial Menagerie, so that's -1 to wound across your army. If you're building a Stormcast army, if you're building a Redeemer, Stormkeep army, I don't think that's necessarily what you're going to take, but you might. You might do that. And then you've got Mirror Shield, so it cannot be shot within 9 inches. So you might take that. You're probably going to take the Amulet of Destiny, to be honest. But you might take that.
Good old amulet.
Yeah, you might take that instead.
Why is it always amulets? What is it about the mortal realms and people being like, oh, love me an amulet?
Oh, I mean, amulets
Pretty
are cool,
necklace.
man. You know, in the movie when like the guy, like he's like, here, you take the amulet of Morthin Kafafa or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Morthin Cathatha is a dangerous person too. So you'd be good having his amulet.
Anyway, right, then the command abilities is Call for Aid. Right, so there are there are 5, there might be 6, and I've not written one down, but there are 5 command abilities, there might be 6. And they're all once per battle. So there are no command abilities on War Scrolls anymore.
Which is nuts, right?
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, fine. It's fine. I'll play without them. Don't need them anyway.
You don't need them anyway?
Never needed them. Never needed them ever. Don't know what you're on about.
Okay, I think that's pretty sad. I think there's two parts to the conversation. The first part is it was always a bit tough when the command ability that you wanted was locked on a model you didn't like. So I could 100% understand taking a command ability off of different models, right? Because then you're like, oh, that's cool. I don't have to worry about I'm taking them for the other abilities on the War Scroll, I guess. But then it also makes them like not interesting. Like we all remember Gavriel's Shore Charge, because
good old Gavriel, only in Hammers of Sigmar, which is why they were all we saw for a year though. So I think like there's interesting bits, isn't there? Like characters probably shouldn't have ever been faction locked in Age of Sigmar. Like I've said that for forever. But yeah, it's interesting because then you kind of lose some character from those ridiculous characters.
Well, I think that's the key point, right? You like the flavor. That's why we're talking about it on Flavor Town Show today. The flavor, of course, is that if the flavor isn't in, like, where is the flavor in the book? Where is the spice melange? Is my question. Like, where is the tasty sauce? And some good rules writing. I used to joke that I could write like one of these Battletomes in an afternoon. I genuinely think I could write one of these in an afternoon. Yeah, might need a bit of like spell checking, obviously. But like, thank you, Dayton. Where are the tasty biscuits in this book? And you're like, okay, like they just don't have. They've taken away like the flavor's the only word I can really think about it. Like, you know, like the creativity. Like everything just feels a bit blander. And some people might really be happy about that. There's a reason that people still stock plain digestive biscuits at the supermarket. Someone buys them.
Lots of people buy them.
Lots of people buy them. I don't buy them. Like, I feel like we all deserve better biscuits. James.
I mean, that's all you're going to have soon. Brexit means Brexit. Sorry, just put that in there.
Most of the old small heroes just got so bad in this book. They have the same attack and no real abilities. They could just take them out at that point. I agree. Bland means you can put on your own spin on it if you have the creativity, says Datcom, but they don't produce any creative rules. Because if they gave you creative rules to choose from, be it like some special items or whatever it might be, then that's how you would create it, but they don't. It's actually quite interesting, James, because 40k plays really similar to this book. This book is like proto 40k, where everything in 40k is very bland and has very few special rules. Like almost no special rules. And the way you like create some fun interactive stuff is by doing stratagems, and you like scream like a maniac and put a car down and be like 2 CP, and then you say something mental, right? That's how 40k works. This is the same, but it doesn't have any of the stratagems. It just has like, are you going to redeploy that unit? Because I'm within 9. You're like, yeah, I'm going to redeploy that unit. Are you going to unleash hell? Because you shoot? Yeah, I'm going to unleash hell. And that's all you're going to do. No, we have way too many special rules and they're all fucking boring and uninteractive, says Tom in the chat. That's talking about 40k. Right, so the commandability is once per battle. A 5-man unit of Redeemer with an identical... So this is call for aid. You can replace a 5-man unit that's been slain with an identical unit wholly within 12 inches of a Stormcast hero, outside of 9 inches from your enemy. Once per battle, you can return 1 5-man unit. James, how do you feel about that? That's a Redeemer unit.
Nowhere near as good as the current one, is it?
No. A steadfast march. Once per battle, start of the movement phase. Within 12 inches of a knight or 18 inches of a lord or draconith, you can pick a unit and wholly within those ranges, and you can run and charge. Great. Love that. That's pretty good. But you have to pay for an enhancement, James. So are you going to pay for the Amulet of Destiny, or are you going to pay for that commandability?
Right, so you don't just get a commandability for free. I got to pay for this.
That's a great question. Maybe you get one for free. You get one of every enhancement for free. You might get one commandability for free because it's in like that enhancement section now. So you're right. Maybe you get one. You're right. Let's go for that. You do get one for free. You get one for free, so you can have that.
I'd take that one.
Yeah. Okay. The other one is. So yeah, thank you everyone. So the other one is Thunderbolt Volley. You can pick a Justicar or an Angelos unit, and they can shoot in the hero phase, 12 inches of a Lord of Dracoth. So a Justicar and Angelos unit. So Judicators, or like Vanguard Raptors.
Prosecutors at Angelos. Prosecutors of the Angelos unit. Can't wait to throw them javelins and miss twice in a turn.
Thunderbolt Volley, 6 long strikes, and RIP their back line, says Charles the Dead Lizard. So that's a 400-point unit to put in your army that you would use to do 6. 6 of them would do 12 shots, 3s and 3s, Rend 2, damage 2. Any 6s are a mortal wound, and the sequence ends. 2 mortal wounds and the sequence ends. And then you obviously get to shoot in the shooting phase. So that's going to be 24 shots that you can do coming out of that 400-point unit. If you go first at the range at 24 inches, no, 30 inches. So there's an option if you want to do that. Then you've got Thunderbolt. We've done Thunderbolt Volley. Unleash Thy Hatred, which is once per battle, combat phase. Pick a Paladin unit, and it gets +1 attack that phase. And you have to be wholly within, not within 12 inches or 18 inches. So +1 attack on a Paladin unit, which is fine. And then final Thunderstrike, once per battle, combat phase. You pick a Stormcast unit that explodes on 5s instead of 6s. Yeah, which is pretty nice. It's pretty nice. So when it dies, you roll a dice for each model in the unit. If it's Thunderstrike, you add +1, and any 5s and 6s will do a mortal wound in return. Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah. So any of those stand out to you? A lot of people really excited about taking some Judicators and doing 60 shots. Some people excited about doing it on long strikes with Vanguard Raptors with long strikes. Any of those feel good?
I just that pick a unit, run and charge is the one all day.
Yeah, I like the pick a unit, run and charge. I like that a lot. That one's...
And I also think, because if it's going Draconith, that should allow it to... Does that allow Dracoth? Are they Draconith now?
Yes, they are.
Yeah. So you could, if you've got an old army and you want to try and run it, does pump up them, old Dracoth units, and you can take them as battle line in hammers the Sigmar. So I think there's some nice little bits there, I think.
Yeah. Thank you to Midvelm and Jay for Jackson for subscribing, and Jay for Jackson for donating the gift subscription. That's pretty nice of you. So those are the command abilities, and they're fine. You could build around one of them. if you wanted to do long strikes, and you could build around the other for run and charge, which I think is the one you're going to do. Right, so that's everything. Yeah, that's everything. Now let's talk about these bad boys. Let's not even talk about that guy. Let's just move straight on to the Stormdrake Guard, James, because I'm fucking sick of just like burying the lead. Right, Stormdrake Guard, a battle line. If you have a Knight Draconis as your general, which is pretty cool. If you do have a Knight Draconis as your general and you give him the upgrade, then these guys, which are monsters, are going to be -1. There's a monster keyword. Are they? They're monsters? Yeah, monster keyword. So they're going to be -1 to wound. Yeah? Yeah? James, do you hear me?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Good. That's a positive.
Sorry, I got distracted. I sent you a message.
Oh, okay. Oh, do we need to go? Is this...
No. Just check it.
Okay. This...
On Skype.
Oh.
Look at your computer screen.
Oh no, the nightmare situation, the nightmare fuel. It's what's happened. I know everyone's meant to see my screen. That's fine.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
Then.
Oh, this isn't those pictures, James. This is fine. This is intended. Yeah, these are leaked on Twitter. Shout out to Chump Hammer for putting these on Twitter. So it's 285 points for 5 of these guys, right? Stormdrake Guard. They're monsters, and like I've said, they're going to be minus...
Two, not 5.
Sorry, wait. Did I say 2? 2. 285 points for 2.
Yeah, there we go.
And they're monsters. So like I said, and they can be battle line if you have the Knight Draconis as your general. Now they've got 9 wounds each, and they've got a 3-up armor save. So for 285 points, you've got 18 wounds on a 3-up armor save, and they move 12 inches, which is pretty good. Now the good news is they're not great in a fight; they're just okay in a fight. They've got the Draconic Flamestorm, which is a 12-inch weapon, 12-inch shooting attack, so that gives them a 24-inch effective range. And then they've got either the Warblade or the Lance. In my opinion, the Warblade's better, but we'll talk about that in a moment. The Lance is a 2-inch range, but it's got 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend 1, damage 1. If you charge, it becomes rend 2, damage 2. And then you've got the Warblade, which is 6 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend 1, damage 1, which I think is generally just better anyway, over time.
I mean, 6 attacks is a lot on 3s and 3s.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And then you've got...
and then you just pray on them.
Yeah. Or you don't even need to pray. You can just put them in the sub-faction. Right?
That is true.
That just gives them exploding 6s if you want. But you could do one or the other. And then the actual dragon has got 4 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend 2, damage 2. Yeah? Which is pretty nice. So on a unit of 2, you're going to have 8 attacks that are damage 2 with rend of 2. Now, their shooting attack's really nice. You pick a unit within 12 inches, and you roll up dice. On a 1 to 2, nothing happens. On a 3 to 4, they take D3 mortal wounds. On a 5 to 6, you take D6 mortal wounds. So from 285 points, you can move 12 inches, you can shoot 12 inches, and you might do 2d6 mortal wounds before you even charge, which is quite nice. Let's be honest. And then, they've also got a 4-up spell ignore, so they ignore spells on a 4. The champion, they have a champion, so they can issue commands to themselves, like all-out defense, taking them to a 2-up armor save. Or you could stick Mystic Shield on them, making them have a 2-up armor save base anyway. And then you could give them all-out defense if you want. You can make all their attacks +1 to hit, obviously, taking them down to 2s. They've also got Merciless... we've talked about that. They talk about how you organize them, which is actually really nice. The formation for how you put them together. Like, they talk about coherency, which I think is really nice in the core rules. Yeah, I think this is really good. And then they've got Dragged into the Tempest, which is an important one. So the Arcane Heritage is what makes them ignore spells on a 4-up. And then Dragged into the Tempest is in the combat phase after all units have been all of this unit's attacks have been resolved. You can pick one enemy unit within 1 inch of that unit and roll a dice. If that roll is greater than the opponent's wounds characteristic, they die. which is
Your opponent gets to pick the model, though.
your opponent does get to pick the model, and Mamdare, you're correct. They don't have a ward save. You're right. They're 18 wounds at 200. Just write that down as a monster for yourself. It's 18 wounds for 285 points on a 3-up armor save. We haven't talked about some stuff in a moment. We'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, that's pretty good, because if you're fighting Varangard and you don't kill one, you've got an opportunity. They do have the monster keyword, which isn't the behemoth keyword. So if you want, you can roll a 5-up and you can try and like murder, or on a 6-up, you can try and murder a hero or a character, or like a Kurnoth hunter you might be fighting, or something that's quite big. So that's quite nice. And then you got Draconic Onslaught, which is once per battle.
This is
Go on, James.
nuts.
You tell me. Tell me what it is.
Pure nuts. So once per battle in your hero phase, this unit can make a normal move. So 12 inches.
Yeah.
Roll a dice if enemy units are within 12 of this unit after that normal move. On a 2+, this unit can immediately attempt to charge.
Mm-hmm. Once per battle,
So
yeah, go on.
You get into 2 attempts to charge them.
You are getting 2 attempts
you,
to charge them. Yeah. Like you get 2 attempts to charge them. So that's probably what takes these guys from really good at 285 points to bonkers. And I think kind of throws a spanner in the works in the conversation that they've tried to simplify it, although it is fairly simple. If you look at the volume of rules that this unit has compared to... and do you know what? If you look at Decimators and whatever they're called as well, they've got a volume of rules on them, which the old stuff doesn't have. And to be fair, it's awesome. Like, I love that it's just a dragon army now.
The rules on this war scroll,
yeah,
I think, are more rules than all the faction allegiance put together.
Oh, yes.
Like, that's when that's when it's crazy, right? You're like, cool. So here's my sub faction. Like, here's all of them, 1 page. Yep. Here's a dragon, 2 pages. Oh.
Yes Meatballs in the chat says, does charging in the movement phase mean you can't unleash hell against them? Correct. That's correct. Now, because they're battle line, so you also might not be able to stop them. And also, don't forget, they probably will have a 2-up armor save. Like, so they're pretty resilient. But you're right, they won't have a ward save, and they don't have a healing mechanic. Now, if you just take, let's say, 3 units of 2, that's going to be 900 points, which is pretty expensive. Yeah? Like, I'll grant you that, right? But you can just take fucking 6. You can just reinforce them twice, right? And there's a load of stuff to talk about when you take 6. Let's talk about Rally, because Rally would be pretty fucking sweet on 6, yeah? Let's be real. Like that.
Well, it's worse, isn't it?
Why?
So if I rally them, right? So if I, once per game, once per battle, sorry, was the rule. In my hero phase, this unit can make a normal move.
Yeah.
Yeah? So I move them 12 away from an enemy.
Mm-hmm.
So they're now not in charge range, so they can't charge them, which is a shame.
Well, so Rally's done at the start of the hero phase, I'm pretty certain, and this is once per battle in your hero phase. So before, at the start, happens.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, and don't forget, and thank you very much, don't forget that you've taken the general with the command trait that's made them -1 to wound. So they're already, James, -1 to wound on a 2-up armor save is where they already are, which is pretty nice.
It's good for them. It's good for them. No one should want to kill a dragon.
Yeah. Can you? No, you cannot cycle of storm. You can cycle of storm to negate the first wound, Camelot, which we'll talk about that in a minute. Rob, fuck Rally. What you want is hammer haul and pile in twice. JP2 Twitch, correct. That would be fun. You could take these in hammer haul, but now the interesting thing is you can't take. You can only have 2 of these as battle line if you have a general. Otherwise, you can't take units of 2, and you can only take a unit of 1. Right? So if they're not battle line, which they become a unit of 2, you can only have them as single ones. Right? They've also done this with fulminators as well. Weirdly, for some reason. Yeah? But I know that sounds odd, but that's basically how it works. So in a city's army, you'll only be taking 1s. I'm pretty certain. They'll become battle line, but they won't be battle line in cities.
No, there'll be 2s.
Oh, no, you can still do it. Yeah.
2 in a unit.
Yeah. Anyway, regardless. Yeah, that's not what we're here for a minute. So you can take units of 2. I'm pretty certain that's not the fucking case, lads. Let me just fucking go check and make sure. I read this earlier. 1 second. Let me go get up my things. 1 second, James. So Stormdrake Guard, single. You can include one unit of this type of... For each Nitroconus you include in your army, this unit cannot have the battle line battlefield role. And it's also single, therefore you can't reinforce it, because you can't reinforce singles. Oh, no, you can... Right. You can reinforce singles.
Yeah.
Can you? No, single means you can't reinforce.
Yeah.
No, you can't reinforce it. Next line up. This unit... So you can include one unit of this type, but it's Stormdrake Guard, unit of 1, it's 145. So you can use the one left from your knight to build. The single model unit is because the kit has 2 models, but the hero is an alternate build, leaving you with a spare single dragon model. Okay, thank you everyone. So you can. Fine. Fair enough. Fair enough. And then you can take a unit of 2, apparently, and their battle line if. Thanks everyone. Appreciate you all. Very nice. Thanks everyone for helping me out there. That's nice that we got that resolved. Okay. Irregardless, yeah, these guys are pretty good, James. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Pretty dragon. Maybe didn't need a different flight stand, but other than that, probably just buy these.
Right, so we should talk about the Draconis Guard now. Yeah. Oh, not Draconis Guard, sorry, the Night Draconis. That's the fucking badger. Let's go talk about
the big lads.
The big lads. This is the hero, the Night Draconis.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about him. Now I don't have wasn't leaked online or whatever, or maybe it was, I don't know, but I've got a picture of it anyway, so just give me a second, but you guys can't see it, so fuck off. Let me go find this. Here we go. So the Night Draconis is 11 wounds with a 3-up armor save, and he moves 12 inches as well. He's got the shooting attack, which does the mortal wounds. He also ignores spells on a 4-up because he's got arcane heritage. Obviously he flies. And he's got the Wrath of the Draconith and also Dragged into the Tempest. Dragged into the Tempest is where you can roll a dice at the end of combat to try and kill a model if you roll above it. But the Wrath of the Draconith is, once per battle, this is just an ability, in your hero phase you can pick one friendly Stormdrake Guard unit wholly within 12 inches of this unit that has not made a shooting attack in that phase. That unit can shoot. So we can take our 2 dragons and we can pre-game move them up 12 inches. Not pre-game, hero phase move them up once per battle. And then we can use our Night Draconis, if we want to make them shoot in the hero phase. And then they can move and shoot again in the movement and shooting phase. Right? Or, as like Vangelis says, 6 dragons shooting twice would be pretty nice. Yeah.
Can you do you imagine just some person you're like, cool, all your foxes are dead.
So let's just get it in our heads. On the War Scroll for the Drake Guard, whatever they're called, yeah, you can move 12 inches in the hero phase. It doesn't say when. Now, the Night Draconis has got an ability that lets them shoot then in the hero phase. So a 12-inch mortal wound shooting attack. And then, if you want, you can move them again in the movement phase and then shoot them again in the following shooting phase, which is quite nice as like a turn 1 alpha. Right, so if you just took 4, for example, because that's probably more reasonable, you would move them forward like 12 inches. You would shoot 12 inches, that's 24-inch effective range, and then you would move again. So that's a 24-inch movement, and then you would shoot again. So that's a 36-inch threat range on that shooting attack, and then you would charge. Right, so you'd be pretty close.
Yeah.
But are you telling us to look at 3D printed dragons or dragon riders? Yes, that's what I'm doing.
You don't need the rider, just print the dragon.
Yeah, so Paragalaxis says that's like, 9 mortals on average each time? Roughly about that. Which is pretty good for killing monsters or chaff or anything, because again, if you put them into combat, they're not bad. And they're not all of your army. If you took the character, he is... How many points is that guy? Let me go find out real quick.
Oh, I've probably
like
got it. What's his name?
I think he's 215. The 255, the Night Draconis. So if you wanted just a unit of 4, yeah, and him, that's going to be, 600, 855. So it's about 855.
It's like the same cost as an Alariel.
It's about Archeon equivalent. It's about a Nagash equivalent, but you are looking at 36 wounds on a 3-up save. From that one unit, and then you've also got... So it's pretty good, is what I'm saying. So Night Draconis, the Wizard Dragon, and as many Dragon Knights as possible is what I'm saying, yeah. And the thing is when you start comparing them to other stuff, James, they're crazy. So if you compare them to Evocators on Dracoline, right, which I really hoped would get a buff in this book, because they've been pretty crap for ages, and they're fucking cool. Thundercats, right? They look awesome.
Yep.
They've got a 4-up base save. They don't have a hero phase move. They don't have a mortal wound shooting attack. They've got a crap weapon profile. Like, I mean, it's not crap, but it's fine. They do some mortal wounds at the end a bit, but they're like, whatever. Paladors, I hope, would get better, but they just, like, because whenever you compare anything inside the book, you just be like, is it a dragon? And does it do anything different to what everything else does? Does that make sense? So a good example would be a Celestar Ballista, right? So a Ballista now has got like a Ren 2 shooting attack. It's like a... Let me just go find the points for this for a minute. It's 140 points, okay?
Yep.
And you're going to do like... And it's going to sit at the back of the board, and it's not going to do anything. It's going to take a couple of pot shots, and that's all it's going to do for 140 points. Or you could just take 2 dragons that do 2d6 mortal wounds, and they fight... Right, like it just every time you think,
just
go on.
As a hilarious point.
Yeah.
So we could take the Celestar Ballista, 140 points, or you could take the single dragon on his own for 145 points.
Yeah.
So for 5 points more,
you've got 9 wounds in a combat unit. Yeah, like it's just
that shoots better.
Right, like when you compare them to anything, like what are you doing with Gryph-hounds? They've got a retreating charge. Why would you put them in the army? Same with Aetherwing, although Aetherwings do give you +1 to hit for your Hurricane crossbows. So if you wanted to, you could take your 4 block of shooters at the back, 6 block of shooters at the back, make them shoot twice in the hero phase, still do 4 dragons, yeah, and run them forward. It's wild. And we haven't even talked about the fact they're a unit. If you took 6 dragons, James, you can rally them. I can't get over it.
Imagine just rolling, like, if you roll 2 6s, what's that? 18 wounds back?
Yeah. The interesting thing, though, is someone said, I rate dragons. And the answer is, I don't think I rate the dragons. Because what you got to ask yourself is, how are they going to play into the meta that they've been released into? And the real question is, the real answer is can they beat up the big babies? Can they build up the war toddlers, as Owen calls them, the sons of Behemoth? And I'm not sure that they'll take a Gargant out in a turn, truth be told. Maybe with exploding 6s, maybe. Like, I'm not certain. I don't think so. Like, so then you kind of...
6 shooting twice, I think someone said, it's about 22 mortal wounds, and then you get their combat. So that one turn, they'd probably decimate one, right?
They'd probably kill one, yeah. But like at 6, like coherency is a bit of an issue. There's some other stuff, and it's I don't think that would play very well like in the rest of the game. Like, so would 4 kill them? I'm not sure. So then you kind of cycle back and you ask yourself, right, how do I build the most kick-ass unit that can take out these Gargants? Right, that's the real question I think you ask yourself. And you start going back into the book and you look, and I was like, oh, that's why I ran to Protectors first. And I was like, oh, probably not Protectors, actually, because they've just got a bunch of Rend 1, Damage 1 attacks. Like, who gives a fuck? But Pete's pointed out that they're also monsters, right? I forgot to mention that completely. So a unit of 4 is going to count as 20 wounds on an objective. It doesn't outscore a Mega Gargant, but 6 would outscore a Mega Gargant. Yeah, but only on one objective. I don't know. Also, you score all your battle tactics because they're monsters, which is pretty nice. I don't know if the Stormcast book can deal with it. Talking about the Mega Gargants, because I'm not sure where the output lies. And if there's anyone who's watching live who's like, I've cracked it, Rob. This is the
Do you know what you do? I've got it right now.
Yeah.
It's turn 1. You've got to be a 1-drop. You've got to outdrop them giants. In turn 1, you just have enough Annihilators, like 4 sets, and you just pin all them Mega Gargants in combat for the whole game. In their
they're
deployment,
quite fighty, the Mega Gargants, man. Like, they're quite fighty. Although,
yeah, but their best Ren's what? Ren 2.
Ren 3 on the Gatebreaker.
I'll just ignore him.
Or if you've got some Kraken sandals, James. If you've got some good old Kraken sandals for some Ren 3. Anyway, now let's look at Krondis' War Scroll, because this is important. Oh, I have forgot to mention. They're Thunderstrike, right? They're also like, if they
all blow up.
If they die, yeah, you're gonna roll 9 dice. Any 6s are a mortal wound.
10 dice because they're 9 wounds.
Yeah, 10 dice because they're 9 wounds. Yeah, so you're gonna do mortal wounds in return from that unit as well, which is also quite a nice little feel. But anyway, I forgot to mention that because that is something to talk about, because you can do the mortal wounds in return. So Krondis, let's talk about him really quickly and whether or not you can take him. Is 600 points. He's 18 wounds with a 3-up save. Now he's got that blazing Tempest shot as well, so he's going to do those mortal wounds. I feel like he's fairly expensive, but you might take him because he's got some like clutch pieces. He's a 2-cast wizard, and he's got Blinding Gales, which is subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by a unit. That you pick a unit basically. You do Atavistic Tempest, and you pick an effect. Blinding Gales, Meteor Hail, which is worse than the Ren characteristic of weapons used by the enemy unit by 1. Lightning Vortex, which is subtract 1 from the attack characteristic of missile weapons used by that unit to a minimum of 1. And then Flash Freezing Blizzard, subtract 1 from save rolls for attacks that target that unit, which is quite nice. I just don't think he does a lot, if I'm honest. He's got +3 to cast, but he's 600 points. And guess what?
If you take him... If you take it?
Yeah.
Does he make the Little Dragon's battle line?
No.
It has to be the lad on Little Dragon.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Okay.
And also, and this is really important, really important, 600 points of Krondis is 4 Drake Guard. Right, so he's 18 wounds.
And
he's 18 wounds on a 3-up save. They would be 36 wounds on a 3-up save. So why would you not take that? And -1 to wound if you take the mount trait on your Draconis. Yeah, 100%. And yeah, he's not super great in a fight, which is important. I much more prefer, more than Krondis, I much more prefer our man Karazai. He's pretty cool. He's 18 wounds with a 3-up save, and he's 600 points as well. He's got 6 attacks in combat, 3s and 1s, Ren 3, damage 3, which is pretty nice. And then you got the Ruinous Talons, which is 4 attacks, 3s, Ren 2, damage 2. So I would probably take him, if I'm honest. Or I maybe even take a Celestant Prime, because he's got a 4-up ward save now, which is pretty cool. So those are the 2 things that I would take. And this is what stands out to me at the moment, James, from the Stormcast book. Like, nothing else really stands out. Like, it's dry white toast.
So,
go on.
Can I ask the most important question that's on my
Please
mind? After 5 years of Age of Sigmar,
Mm-hmm.
and probably 4.5 years of one person playing dragons, have you finally been worn down?
What, am I going to get them?
Have you finally been told that dragons are good? Has he finally beat you down?
Well, like, the thing is like, we didn't mention the Chariot. Sorry, another hot pick. The bow person, whatever that's called, Knight Judicator, rubbish. Like, fine, but rubbish. And the Chariot is genuinely pretty nice. I could see someone wanting to run a bunch of different chariots, charge him in to do all the impact hits and mortal wounds. The problem is you always ask yourself, how is it going to work in relation to the rest of the book, and how is it going to relate to winning games in a tournament setting? And ultimately, like we've seen from the event results, having monsters in your list is actually proactive rather than, like, we thought at the start maybe having monsters would be a negative, like you give away battle points for them killing a monster, but you're just going to do battle tactics with having all these monsters anyway, so why not take them? And also, like we said, all of their rules, they've just got stacks of rules on their war scrolls, as do the Annihilators. And then everything else is really bland and uninteresting. Like, what you're really saying is, like, Protectors are a good example. You're like, oh, they can have a 2-up armor save. And it's like, yeah? So?
I think your problem you'll get with all of that stuff where you get, like, Protectors on a 2-up armor save is they won't probably die, but they'll never kill anything.
Yeah. Like, effectively. And there is some other fun stuff. I'm pretty certain you could build Redeemer armies. We need to talk about that at some point in the future, and what that looks like in an army.
We should talk about that, because I think I have 40 Vindicators.
Right, so we'll talk about that. But I guess we'll come back to, like, the main point of the conversation to kind of round off, because anyone who's listening, this obviously isn't a deep dive. Like, there's loads to talk about. These are the things that just stand out. Like, and what I would buy if it was me. And if you guys don't agree, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are in the chat. But these are our first Age of Sigmar Battletomes, and so I think there are some interesting questions that we kind of should ask ourselves. And I'm going to ask the chat, and James, I'm going to ask you. How do we feel about the idea that it's been simplified? And how do we feel about the fact that we've been, in my opinion, pushed quite aggressively into certain purchases or even running certain armies in a competitive setting? What do you think about that? Studio Ursewood, it's rubbish. I think I super agree with that. Circon, it's great to see her. Very interesting that the new models are the better ones in the book. Now, that hasn't always been true, Circon. Like, there's been a lot of conversation a lot of the time by people, which I've always pushed back against. They're like, oh, they always want to sell the new stuff. I point you to Slangors just recently. They were not good. Yeah. But this is like a very clear intent, as is the Uruk Warclans book, right? They made Bone Splitters have a lot less stuff and therefore be a lot less powerful in some ways. Iron Jaws, undecided on at the moment, but not Bone Splitters, but the Cruel Boys have got a ton of rules in addition. It's been selectively simplified. Thank you, Pete. It has been selectively simplified. What do you think, James? What do you think?
It's so hard, isn't it, with like 2 books? Like, you almost, if they're going to simplify the whole game, you almost need every book day one, like for battle traits, for battle tactics, for all that jazz. And I know we're never going to see that. We'll probably never see a working app, so hold that space. But it's interesting. I think like simplifying the allegiance abilities, allowing me to take the artifact I want, is probably a better idea. Maybe the hope is that we'll see more diversity across armies. You know, like Stormcast especially, when we saw Gavriel make everyone charge guaranteed, whenever that was, early 2.0 maybe. Like every army was Hammers of Sigmar all day long, every day of the week. I think like maybe that's the concept. But I don't know. I think it's really hard, like any point with the game, so I'm going to try and not be negative about it. I think it's really hard for anyone to make a decision without us seeing it like play out on a table. So maybe we'll see that. Well, we should see that soon. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens. It'll be interesting to see, you know, if anyone tries to make all that old stuff work because they sat on 10 ton of it. I know several people in the chat I spotted it said they got like 70 plus sequiturs. But I don't know. It's an interesting way. It's interesting for the game to go. Like, they complicated maybe the way the game plays. And I know we've talked about that plenty. So maybe the idea is they make the decisions within the game more complex, but the core rules of your army easier, and then you just have to remember the war scrolls that you choose to remember. Maybe that's the concept.
I think there's a couple of points being made in the chat, or quite a few points in the chat that I'd like to talk about. So someone asked, how are you defining simpler? And I think like there are less rules and they're less effective. Now, effective is one of those really interesting things for competitive gamers, but also gamers in themselves, because when you look at other War Scrolls or even other books, Lumineth stands as an example. The more rules they have, those rules are pretty effective. They have a lot of rules, and a lot of those rules are effective. You know, as an example, like Sire, like their Aether Quartz ability and the ability to add +1 to save at any point is pretty effective. But it's also like a characterful rule, I guess, I think is one of those things that you need to ask yourselves. I think what strikes me is, yes, they're less effective, and yes, there are less of them, therefore it's simpler. But more importantly, it feels blander. That's one of those things that like really stands out to me. Like, why isn't there like a dedicated Stormcast unit that fights monsters? It's weird. You're like, Rob, it's the Vanguard Hunters. I'm like, no, it's not. Like, they don't do something good against monsters. Like, they've got like a fucking bolt pistol and a sword. Shit. Like, it's just another fighting unit that's crapper than me taking Vindictors, because they're a better fighting unit that do a better job, right? So it's a weird, like, they aren't written well for that. And the interesting thing I don't think anyone's asked themselves yet is what's going to happen to other books when they go through this process. If this is the process in the future, if you're really excited about your Lumineth Realm Lords army is a really good example right now, or your Soulblight Gravelords book, or whatever, or your Tzeentch book or Seraphine book, they're going to take your rules away from you. Like, if the books go like this, they're going to be like, hey, Thunder Lizard, no shoot twice. Bastiladon, not have this thing. Like, you'll have less rules if this is anything to go by, with the new stuff getting more rules, I guess, because the new stuff in this has got more rules. And I think that's just an interesting kind of talking point for the community going forward over the next few editions. I mean, I'm excited to have it out, and if it just ends up with everything being very simple, like it is, and less effective, then it will just be whichever the best War Scrolls are will be the best War Scrolls, and that'll be how the game is moved around. I think one of the most interesting things was said by the Carly brothers, who were here recently at one of our Age of Sigmar events. They said they like Age of Sigmar sometimes more than 40k, because when they preview a 40k rule, they're like, your number is bigger. Like, your toughness is toughness 5, not toughness 4 now. Like, your number is bigger. And what's good about Age of Sigmar, it's the funky stuff you can do with your unit is what's cool. It makes it interesting. But I guess if everything's like a base stat line with reroll 1s to save or +1 to hit, like, it becomes a bit samey. Do you know what I mean, James?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I got lost in the chat slightly. There's a lot of conversation. I think it's really hard, isn't it? Like, we're seeing the first books of a new edition. I think also what we've tended to see is, like, quite often a good book and a bad book. You know, we always say sin and bin, or always have, when two come out at the same time. And at the end of 2.0, we saw, like, the Slash book, which was kind of horrid, but we saw, you know, the Seraphon book, which was super strong. We saw that Lumineth book, which added and, like, questioned a million core rules. And actually what we're seeing now is something simpler.
And maybe this is, maybe like everyone said in the chat, and I said it at the top of the show, maybe this is just the Bin Guys version of Age of Sigmar 3 books, and we haven't seen the Sin Guys version of Age of Sigmar 3 books, because these themes that I'm talking about, by the way, are carried across in the Uruk book, yeah, where the Iron Jaws, I'm not saying nerfed, although the Maw-Crusher went to a 4-up, and these dragons have all got a 3-up in their battle line, but it's awful. That's the word I'm looking for. Awful. It's an awful change. They were like, you bought your Maw-Crushers now, 4+ save. New dragons, 3+ save. Like, that's an awful change, right? Like, I don't like that at all. But what they need to do is be brave at putting things into Legends. 30 of the Stormcast scrolls could have just be gone. That's almost 50% less bloat in the book. I think that's fair. Right, so then let me see what everyone else is saying in the chat. Banjo and Chain, is the simplification of rules for Stormcast Eternals related to the number of War Scrolls available to the army? No, because it's been carried across in also the Uruk book as well. So that's the other thing. And 3D Hexes is right, because one of the things also that's a bit too much is, like, bloat. We talk about bloat all the time. Tom's in the chat talking about 40k. Some books are too complicated. Some books are too much. I think I'm pro simplification. I think ultimately, it might not sound like it from today's show, but, like, I think I'm pro simplification, but I think I would like to see things be more effective. I think I would like to see flavor. I think the best version of Age of Sigmar is where all of the flavor is on the War Scrolls and you take them, right? And then that's what you do.
Do you know what would be even better? Yeah. So we could make the rules, like the book rules, simpler. We could make the War Scrolls more interesting and more flavorful, and we could also have an online resource and an app where all of those War Scrolls are freely available.
They could have done that.
Just looping. Just looping.
Galgotha says,
Keeping
Rob,
that
what is your
circle
take on
going.
the Cruel Boys? You're still on the boat. Yeah, Cruel Boys are great. But again, you've been, I think, fairly pigeonholed on the Cruel Boys element, that, like, the shooters are good. And we'll talk about that more next week. Like, they've definitely got builds. I think one of the interesting things is that this version of Age of Sigmar, if people don't just, like, if you're a new kid and you just buy a bunch of dragons, you're just going to kick the fuck out of your, like, mate who just ended up buying some bone splitters, right? Maybe you won't kick the fuck out of him, but maybe you will. I don't know. Like, it needs to come out in the wash. And again, we've only just had this version of it. So if you're new, it feels quite nice. If you've been in the game for 5 or 6 years, I guess maybe I miss this isn't what I was expecting from books at all, James. Like, this isn't what I was expecting at all. I was expecting Lumineth Realm Lords level rules on every War Scroll. I was like, they're going to go to fucking town. We're going to have, like, allegiance abilities coming up the yazoo and everything. And maybe that's too much to learn in the release cycle that they have. So maybe they're just like, let's do it simple. Honestly, I wonder what the fuck they've done for work. Like, if they can make those books, this can't have taken long. Like, what are they doing? Right? I know Jervis retired.
It was a global pandemic.
Right? No, I know Jervis retired, but, like, are they not working anymore? Like, is it just, like, one guy? Maybe the same guy left the company. I don't know. I think it's very interesting. If I'm honest, I don't know what my feelings are on the whole thing right now, and I'd love to know what everyone else's feelings are. I think it's going to be an ongoing conversation. The one bit I wanted to really touch on today is I think it's disingenuous for people to say that they've just simplified it, which is what I tried to point out today. I don't think they've just simplified it. I think they've simplified the old stuff, and they've made the new stuff have a load of flavour and rules so you can buy it. And it's also probably pretty cooked points-wise, ultimately. But then not all of the new stuff. The Chariot is fine. It's not great. It's fine. It's medium. The bow person is like, what the fuck ever. Like, whatever. Like, why would I take the bow person? I already forgot whatever its name is. There's a Relictor, I think? No.
That new Relictor, great model. Those rules, toilet. I was really excited that there was a new Lord Relictor model for the first time in 5 years. I was like, well, he'd have to be the old one because his rules are garbage.
Hey, the other thing that I'm excited about is if you're a Stormcast player right now with a huge Stormcast army, you must be like, fuck, man.
6,000
Yeah,
points.
you must be like, fuck, man, this is all pretty boring and shit, right? But, like, you must be excited about the fact that you can pick up a bunch of dragons and have a great time. That's pretty nice, right? Like, 2 boxes of Drake Guard and the Drake General or whatever the fuck he's called, Night Drake. That's not his name, Nitroconus. And, that's a kick-ass bunch of shit you're going to be... Like, you're going to be like, I've got the dragon power. You're going to feel awesome.
I'm going to be Speckles for at least 1 year.
Yeah, you're going to feel amazing, right?
But sure.
But yeah. But yeah, if you have a cabinet of the stuff, like Macrack says in the chat, then maybe you'll be like, this is pretty shit. Like, why did I build and paint all these guys? Like, but I still think you can do a Redeemer army, so we should come back to that. Although, obviously, not Liberators, not you, Vindicators, whatever the fuck they're called. Those guys instead.
Vindictors.
Whatever.
Vin Diesel.
Yeah, like a Pushing Salt says, I'm unironically so excited to buy tons of dragons. And that's cool, because if you got into the game at this point, the game is amazing, because you're like, oh my god, I bought loads of dragons, and I'm going to fucking trounce people. And that's, well, not trounce. I don't think that they're necessarily 5-0. We'll see. Maybe they will be. Anyway, Twitch chat, that's it for today, that first look. We'll do Uruks next week, and then we'll do some deep dive shows in the future where I'll talk about combos, and I'll write some lists up, and and we've still got to do the Redeemer talk and all that other stuff. I think there's loads. If anyone thinks that this is good, I would love you to tell people about it and share the video or the podcast or whatever. And if you don't agree, I'd love to also hear your thoughts, because the only way I can grow as a person is to collaborate and learn, stop and listen, or however the song goes, basically. James, you got any thoughts before we head out today?
The first time now I buy some dragons, roll on their mortal wound dice, and do, what do we say, 18 mortal wounds. I want to do more. I want to do more than 80 wounds. 18 mortal wounds. I'm going to take a picture of my dice, send it Speckles, and say, my dragons are better than yours.
You can, if you take 6, yeah?
Easy.
Okay.
Get that wallet out.
Let's do some Kragnos style maths. You can do 36 mortal wounds in the hero phase, and then you can do 36 mortal wounds in the shooting phase, and then you can charge with exploding 6s to hit, if that makes you feel any better.
There we go. Winner.
I
just want to play one dragon army against Speckles' dragon army, and hopefully make him take all his toys off. That's all I want. That's all I want from the book. If Games Workshop did it, I'll say it's a good book.
Anyway, so I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about the rest of it, and genuinely, I'm excited for people to put lists together. I think there's some real fun from like a Redeemer style cities Stormkeep list, but we'll talk about that on another show because it requires loads of thinking about. Anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in. You guys are all great. I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, I'm going to do loads of videos over the next couple of weeks about the Stormcast book, lists. Same with the book. So yeah, we've got the live shows, but I'm going to do a bunch of like other shows as well. So just feel free to fire me questions or thoughts. I want to hear more about it. That's great. Shout out to Twin Atlantic. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Thanks to everyone. Johnny, thank you for subscribing for the first time. That's awesome. Shilly is on the way, for anyone who knows what that means. And thanks for tuning in. Again, I can't do this without everyone on the Wargamer Patreon. So thanks to you guys. And just love you all. You're all great. Shout out to Nathan, who will be back next week to talk about... who, by the way, I rang him earlier. He agreed with none of these points. So just to make you aware, he agreed with none of this. He said simple is good.
Do you have an impression?
He said, yeah, it's fine. No problem.
That sounds about right.
So thanks again for tuning in. You guys are great. I'll be live tomorrow on the 40k Jason show, or Wednesday midday. I'm always live midday, 12 till 1 Wednesday, so you can come and talk to me about stuff. Warclan show is next Monday, if you guys are interested. Thanks to JJ number 10 for subscribing. Thanks for all for being honest Wargamers. See you guys soon. Goodbye.